Okay, everybody, welcome to our next Lunch and Learn for the semester, or for the term. This will be the last one for this term. So I hope everyone is excited to join us. Our topic today is using leadership skills for global outreach. So I'd just like to welcome you all. We appreciate you attending this webinar as both Hobie and Phi Sigma Pi continue to support our shared mission and honor Hugh's legacy. If you have any questions during this webinar, you can ask them in the GoToWebinar box on your screen. There will be some polls during this webinar as well, and during that time, you can pick one of the answers by clicking on your screen. If you would like to follow along with any of the websites or resources that are discussed today, they are able to be downloaded from the handout section. And we have two panelists joining us today. First, we have Hobie's Chief National Programs Officer, Vicki Ferrence Ray. She oversees the program department staff who supervise 58 U.S. affiliates and 70 program sites across all 50 states and a network of 4,000 plus volunteers, serving approximately 10,000 students annually, reporting directly to the CEO and Board of Trustees. She was a Hobie volunteer for 15 years before joining the staff at Hobie International in late 2004. Prior to working for Hobie, she served as an assistant deputy mayor for management and productivity for the city of Philadelphia in Mayor Edwin Rendell's second administration from 1998 to 2000. She left the public sector to work in a private sector as a director of organizational planning and development for Refinery Inc., a strategic web design and technology company from 2000 to 2003. Vicki served as a government consultant on PA Governor Rendell's strategic sourcing initiative in 2004. Vicki is a founding member and former vice president of the Fund It Forward Board of Directors. FIF is a nonprofit organization established in 2011 and assists families with special needs children by raising money for medical and adaptive equipment not covered by health insurance. Vicki also served as a board member and vice president for Perry Highland Lutheran Pre-Kindergarten from 2009 to 2014. At Perry Highland Lutheran Church, Vicki served as lead social outreach ministry team from 2008 to 2014. Vicki has a BA in political science and sociology from Penn State University, a master's in government administration at the University of Pennsylvania, and she is currently pursuing a PhD in administration and leadership studies at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. She is married to Dr. Adam Ray and has two children, Liam, age 9, and CJ, age 8, and they live in Wexford, Pennsylvania. So thank you, Vicki, for being here with us today. And also, we have our Director of Alumni Relations and Programming for Phi Sigma Pi, Sarah Smith. She is now an alum to these Lunch and Learn webinars. Sarah is an alumna of the Epsilon Alpha chapter at Kutztown University. She manages the fraternity's alumni engagement, including the National Alumni Association and alumni chapters. She also assists with national event programming and serves as the Hobie Partnership Lead for Phi Sigma Pi. Sarah is a Hobie alum, and 2017 marks her 10th year as a Hobie volunteer. Currently, Sarah serves on the Board of Trustees as a CLUE Director for Central Pennsylvania Hobie. So thank you, Sarah, for joining us today as well. And Vicki, I will let you take it away.
Thank you. Thank you for that kind introduction. That was wonderful. I do want to give a shout out today to my colleague, Cheryl Bren, who is Hobie's Chief International Programs Officer. She was the one that actually developed this presentation, but unfortunately was unable to deliver the webinar today because she is in China currently with Hobie's CEO, working with our partner organization there to see about the potential of bringing Hobie to China. So she is doing her job in the international realm, and so I'm going to be delivering this presentation today in her absence. So today we're going to talk about connecting to the world around you. It's our intention to leave you today feeling a bit more empowered and inspired and knowing that you can make an impact on the world, but also with a few ideas for how you can start doing that today. So before we get started, I want to start with a couple of quick questions and no Googling allowed. And Casey's going to do some poll questions here with you.
Yes, our first one today is how many countries are there in the world? 178, 195, or 213? Give everyone a few seconds here to place their answers. All right, looks like just about everyone has answered. So let's launch. And we have the most being 195, and that is correct. That is the correct answer. So great job, everybody.
All right, so you are correct. There are 195 countries in the world today. 193 of them are members of the United Nations, and the other two are the State of Palestine and the Holy See, which are recognized observers. So this number does not include territories, dependencies, and those places that are not considered self-governing. And also note there's actually some debate about the number of countries in the world. It varies between 194 and 197, but 195 is what the UN recognizes. So Casey's got another quick poll question for you. Again, no Googling.
Yes, okay. So we have, what makes you a global citizen? You've traveled/lived internationally, you've studied global issues, internal relations, etc., and you are living today. All right, looks like just about everyone has, oh, we got a couple more coming in. All right, now it looks like everyone has voted. And we had about 6% said you've traveled, 35% said you've studied global issues, and 58% said you're living today. And the correct answer is you're living today. So great job.
Correct. So if you're living today, you are a global citizen. In fact, we are all global citizens. You might not see yourself that way yet, but your generation, Generation Z, really is the first truly global generation. So generational speaker Ryan Jenkins sums up Generation Z like this. He says, Generation Z is the first truly global generation with limitless interests and avenues for learning. They've been raised in a high-tech, hyper-connected, on-demand, and impatient culture. Some experts expect Generation Z's mantra to be, good things come to those who act. This self-directed, entrepreneurial-minded, highly educated, and uber-resourceful generation will stop at nothing to make their mark on the world. So then the question becomes, how do you, as this super connected, resourceful generation of global citizens, channel that to make your mark? And regardless of the current geopolitical climate we're living in, it is important to recognize that we have a shared humanity. We have a responsibility to our world to educate ourselves and act accordingly about what is happening around us. So you put those practical leadership skills that you're developing to work. Skills like empathy, collaboration, listening, problem solving, empowerment, respect, and vision all come into play when you think about connecting globally. But most importantly, you must be able to appreciate and respect differences. We all must be able to work with people with different ideas, different backgrounds, different values and beliefs, and understand that all of that is okay if we're going to solve the problems facing the world. And the problems facing the world are large. The reality is making an impact globally takes the same actions and preparations as any other. At Hobie, we have what we refer to as our active leadership cycle. And you can use this same philosophy to make a global impact. You educate yourself, learning, take action on the information you've learned, act, understand how your actions impact the situation, or reflect, and develop sustainable solutions or actions to help resolve the issue, which is to innovate. So we've got another poll question here, so I'll hand it back over to Casey. And again, no Googling.
Yes. So our next poll question for you is, what is the most critical global issue from this list to address today? Is it ending poverty, climate change, access to education, refugees, or gender equity? I'll give everyone a few more minutes here to answer. All right, looks like just about everyone has. So let's take a look at our results. We have 39% said ending poverty, 19% climate change, 19% access to education, 10% refugees, and 13% gender equality. And the actual answer is that all of them are very important. So I will hand it back over to Vicki.
That's correct. So the answer is actually all of these and more are critical global issues today. So there isn't one that's more important, but there are a number of global issues that are interdependent on each other. And that's why it's so important to educate yourself on those global issues first. So we live in this information age, and today information is available to all of us, so we should use it. In the advance email, you were sent a link to a little quiz, Gapminder. This was just to put some of the global issues in perspective for you. Don't worry if you didn't score well on it. I didn't either. It's the first step in understanding the facts. So was anybody surprised by the facts once you completed this? I know that I was. It's so important that we take the time to learn the facts about the issues facing the world today. How else are we going to be a part of the solution? So when we talk about learning, let me share some information and some of the facts with you. So did you know that the world population is nearly 7.6 billion people, and it's expected to reach 8 billion by the year 2023. Nearly half of the world's population, more than 3 billion people, live on less than $2.50 a day, and more than 1.3 billion live in extreme poverty, which is less than $1.25 per day. To give you some perspective, this is equivalent to the entire population of China, India, and the United States living in poverty. There are 728 million undernourished people in the world, and there are also 1.6 billion overweight people in the world. There are 590 million people with no access to a safe drinking water source, and 718,623 deaths caused by water-related diseases this year. There are 65.6 million people around the world that have been forced from their home. Among them are nearly 22.5 million refugees, over half of whom are under the age of 18. And to give you some perspective, that's the equivalent of the entire population of France being forced from their homes just this year. So this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more information available to you, and we've added some resources at the end of the presentation to get you started. So if there are 195 countries in the world, where are they? Well, in Africa, there are actually 54 countries. In Asia, there are 47 countries plus the state of Palestine. In Europe, there are 43 countries plus the Holy See. North America has 23 countries. South America has 12 countries. And oh, by the way, there really isn't anything such as Central America, technically speaking. Australia and Oceania have 12 countries, and Antarctica has 0 countries. Maybe you knew that, and maybe that surprises you, but I would encourage you to discover these types of things. As a society in the US, we talk about Africa as if it's a country, but it's not. It's a continent of 54 separate countries. Let Google Maps be your guide and start discovering what countries make up the world. The average American has been to just 3 nations. Nearly 1/3, or roughly 29% of American adults have never been abroad outside the United States. But you don't need to travel the world to be an active global citizen. Raising your awareness is going to help you be informed and effective. One of the easiest ways to educate yourself about global issues is to familiarize yourself with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. These are 17 goals established by the United Nations that, if met by 2030, will transform our world. Within these 17 goals, there are 169 specific targets. This is a great place to start because I can assure you, if there's an area of concern you're particularly interested in, you will likely find it within these targets. We've included a link to this list in the resources for this presentation, and it's also there on the handouts where you can download it right here. It's called the UN Agenda for Sustainable Development under the PDFs for download. It's paramount that in the learning process, you don't just learn that there is a problem, but to learn the cause of the problem. And understanding the root cause is critical to understanding the full issue and hence being a part of the solution. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Sarah to talk about the next segment of our presentation.
Great. And I just want to, jump off of Vicki when I learned, the different facts, taking that gap finder quiz. We had a discussion prior to the session that, I was being a little bit too harsh on the world. I only got 2 of the questions correct, which is, a little disheartening to me, but it really was just kind of an eye-opener, especially since I was being a little bit more pessimistic about where we are currently, but that also makes me feel a little bit better because I was being so harsh. So I think it is important to continue to, learn about the world, and I think these goals are a great place to start. So once you've learned, it's time to act. And you may have heard the term before, think global, act local. And that's the beauty of these global goals. You don't have to fly around the world to do something. It's easy to become overwhelmed by today's global goals and global issues, but there are things that you can do today to change the world. So here's a fact. So if you would shut off your water when you're brushing your teeth, you could save up to 200 gallons of water a month. There's also approximately 8 billion ATM transactions in the United States every year. According to MarketWatch, if everyone in the United States would select the no receipt option at the ATM, it would save a roll of paper more than 2 billion feet long, or that's enough to circle the equator 15 times. Some hotels and other companies are now giving the option to start receiving a receipt via email rather than a printed one. So I know personally I've tried to get into this habit where, I'm not doing receipts or I'm using my phone apps to, kind of track my spending. So I think, if you're doing this is a great kind of habit to start getting yourselves into. So what are some ways that you or your chapter have already started thinking about doing things locally? So there's definitely, I love this graphic, and I think Casey's going to link it here in the chat box for us, but it's the Lazy Person's Guide to Saving the World. So some things that you can start doing to start having a global impact, just from your couch or your home or with your friends and your family. So a couple ideas that, as seen with the Women's Day video and the UN video, if you see stuff like that on social media, share it and start having a discussion with your friends and family about it. Use a refillable water bottle or a coffee cup. If you can go to a coffee shop and bring a cup with you, typically they'll give you a discount, but then you can also save that money and save the garbage. So if you can head to the chat box, I would love for you to type in some ideas or things that you are personally doing that you feel has fulfilled some of these sustainable goals, or things that your chapter has done to give back. So let's just take a couple seconds, and then Casey will read some of the ideas that you submitted in the chat box. And this is a great opportunity to share some ideas. So if you feel like you've done something really cool or seen something really successful, type that in there.
All right, great. That was a great little, oh, we are getting a bunch of great answers. I'm so excited to read some of these. Okay, so Emily said that my chapter's initiate class is going to clean up the campus this weekend. That's great. Skylar, she said using electronic agendas and reducing the amount of paper we use for documents. Catherine is jumping on the reusable water bottles, grocery bags, textbook swap. Joshua said cleaning up the dog park and our local communities to help with sustainable areas as well as recycling what we find. Rebecca said Beta Chapter helps collect glass recycling in the residence halls on campus, and it's super easy for the residents to recycle everything, which I agree with. Mary said, I use stainless steel reusable water bottles, and my chapter is working on running a plot of land on campus where we can grow our own food. That sounds amazing. I might want you guys to send me some of your food. I want to try it. And Samantha said, mainly sharing facts about issues and trying to start the conversation. They also did a food drive for their initiate class. We have a bunch here. I'm just gonna read two more. Amanda said, we've had service events, picking up trash, recycling around campus. And then we have Allison saying that Gamma Beta does campus cleanups a few times each semester. Keep sending these in. I'll keep reading them as they come in, but these are all great answers to this question. So I'll hand it back over to Sarah.
That is awesome. Definitely, I had a list here and I was checking them off as you were coming in. So I feel like we've gotten a good overview. Just some other ones I want to point up of being a global citizen is just, take advantage of your right to vote. I know that we are all able to vote. So, making sure you host something on your campus about the importance of voting, attending town hall events, attending, local activist festivals. Those can be a great way. Shopping local, supporting your neighborhood businesses to keep people employed. And this can prevent some trucks driving some far distances. Shop vintage. I know I personally love to go to thrift stores and kind of looking at how you can repurpose items and use secondhand shops. Taking fewer napkins. I know a lot of campuses now have those recyclable, compostable napkins, which is great. I know a big fad coming out is buying minimally packaged goods. So I know there's certain stores in cities where you can bring your own containers, like mason jars and glass containers to buy like oatmeal and buy different spices. And I think that's a huge, trend that we will see continue to grow is, not having plastic packaging. Some countries have even outlawed plastic bags. So I think that's, a way that, the one initiative really started with 2 girls, and the next thing you know, their whole country banned plastic bags. So a cool idea that I'd like you to think about is maybe adopt a habit of the month for your chapter and measure what you're doing to see the impact you're making. So maybe one month we challenge the chapter to maybe start air drying your laundry. I know that can be tough because we typically pack our dryers and washers with clothes, but maybe try air drying. Maybe that month you try to set up a compost for the chapter, or instead of using plastic bags, get everyone, recyclable bags, ones that you can reuse. So at the end of the month, try to challenge and measure what impact your chapter is having. And those can also be great statistics for the end of the year when you can say, hey, our chapter has done and contributed this percentage of goodwill and saving towards our sustainable goals. So these are simple, mindful acts like saying no to needing receipts that can have a huge impact. So another thing I want you to think about, especially this time of year, are the international students on your campus. So where can they go for the holidays? Where are they going to go to eat? What do they do when your dorms shut down? So I really challenge you to, if you haven't already, to embrace the international community on your campus. You can learn a lot about the world just by inviting an international student to coffee or invite them to a meeting. I have a Hobie alum that I work with who attended the World Leadership Congress for Hobie, where there's representatives from many, many different countries. And he said, I felt like I traveled the world in 7 days, but I never left Chicago. So again, I want to kind of direct you back to that chat box. And if anybody has ideas of how maybe you have engaged the international community in your campus or your local community, I'd love to hear and see some ideas of, how you've worked with maybe refugees or supporting other countries just on your campus and in your community. So as you type those in, I'll share an example I had in college. I actually volunteered at an adult English class. So on Wednesday nights, we went to a local community building where we assisted the teacher in helping those learn English. So it was a really cool opportunity that, I didn't have to know the language that they necessarily was their first language, but I was able to be a smiling, supportive face for them during, them trying to, learn English and become part of our community. So do we have any coming in, Casey?
We just have a question to start from Josh. He asked, are we permitted to open honorary membership to international members or students?
That I'm not entirely sure of, Josh, but if they are enrolled as an undergraduate student and they're going to be there, for at least the semester requirements, so like a semester they're joining and then at least one active semester, I feel like that they would be allowed because they can just be as, a normal member of your chapter. And I know there's been chapters that have inducted collegiate members that are international students. So I feel like if they meet the requirements and they have, kind of the GPA and they have the semester, I feel like they can. If you can shoot Casey an email or just type your email into that inbox, we can follow up with you. But that's a good question.
Great.
So we will move.
You have an idea?
Okay.
I actually, a couple came in as you were talking with Josh. We got a couple great ones. Joseph from Gamma Beta, they said they have several brothers that work with international peer mentoring program on campus. Rebecca said that actually this week is International Education Week on her campus. So there's a lot of events going on with meeting and interacting with international students, which it sounds great. And then Emily said in the Zeta Sigma chapter, they have many international students and they actually just held a bros giving, which sounds awesome, where they cooked dinner and got together to celebrate early Thanksgiving before break. And our last one I'll say is Mary said during Thanksgiving, out-of-state brothers can go, who can't go home, they host a Friendsgiving on campus for students. So that's great. And I got Josh's email, so we'll follow up.
Great, thank you. So thank you for all those ideas and, definitely having that extended outreach because, as a mission, as our mission and our vision of Phi Sigma Pi, I think this really lives into what we're trying to do as an organization. So moving forward, so getting involved with an online community could also be a great opportunity to start acting. So there's online communities like Do Something or Global Citizen. Do Something is a community built exactly for people like you. There are 5.5 million young people making positive change both online and off. This is an easy and effective way to connect, collaborate, and support concerns that are important to you. You can search or start a project or campaign in an area that resonates with you. The great thing about DoSomething.org is that you are connecting with like-minded young people and you can contribute to a project even if you don't have a lot of time or the resources. So it's really a wonderful way to collaborate with others and make positive change. And I think Casey's going to be sending out these links so you can go and check them out. Again, there's also Global Citizen. So Global Citizen was started by a group of college students in Australia who called upon their institution to take a stand. And this is now where the global movement is about raising awareness to issues. So sometimes we feel like we must come up with a solution, but in reality, sometimes the best thing that we can do is to shine a light on issues and demand that those who are in positions of influence can create change. So I know in the resource document, and I think it will also be linked, there is a TED Talk by a man named Hugh Evans. And I watched this TED Talk today, and it's really inspiring. It's about 15 minutes. And he talks about his experience of how he started Global Citizen. And he said, statistic-wise, of the total population that cares about global issues, about 18% have taken action. And he said that number is pretty low because most people don't know how or how their action will have an impact. So I encourage you to take a look at some of the links provided. Like I said, that Lazy Person's Guide to Saving the World, it talks about what you can do from your couch, what you can do from outside. And I think the more people you can get involved, the better. So maybe challenge your chapter to look at some of those sustainable goals, and each month try to do something that can address them. So if you have time, I really encourage you to watch that TED Talk. And then, does your campus have a United Nations Association chapter? So, as we mentioned with international students, and, there was mentioned that there's an international week on campus, take a look at what international orgs are on your campus, the Cultural Center, other clubs and organizations, and see if you can collaborate with them on an event or a project. So, like I just mentioned with the Global Citizens, sometimes, it's hard for us to have a actual solution to something that's going on globally. But like I said, I challenge you to take a look at that TED Talk, and it really talks about how we can use our voices and our influence to just raise awareness that, we can collaborate on these campuses in our communities, so that, those that do have, the positions to do something more on a global scale, that they can hear us. So take a look at what's on your campus and maybe connect with other students. Maybe there's a member of your chapter that is involved with these orgs, and they can get you involved. So hopefully those give you some ideas of how to act and start working together, not only as an individual, but also as a chapter. Like I said, doing that habit of the month, looking at who you can collaborate with, and look at the sustainable goals and see which one really resonates with you personally and how you can have an impact. So I will turn this back over to Vicki to talk about our Reflect stage.
Thank you so much. So once you've learned and you've acted, the next step on the active leadership cycle is reflecting. And I would encourage you to reflect not just at the end of your action, but also throughout the process, and consider keeping a journal. So for some people, that's a really good way to reflect throughout the process. You want to ask yourself some questions. Have you gained an understanding about the global issues, and how have your actions changed because of that education? The most powerful thing you can do with new information is share it. So have you done that? You can use your social media presence to share, or use the Thanksgiving dinner table coming up to share, the dining hall, the coffee shop, or just a conversation with your friends to share what you've learned. Will you make a change in your behavior as a result of what you've learned? So ultimately, it's about change going forward as well. Once you've reflected, it's time to think about innovation. What is something that you want to change? Will you make a personal commitment to change your actions, behaviors, or beliefs ongoing? And what are ways that you can make an impact today, in the next 30 days, in the next year, or over the next 10 years? What can you do to motivate others to make small differences that have a big impact? So I understand that most chapters meet every week or bi-weekly. And what do you think are some fun things that you could do at chapter meetings that could be helpful? So for example, what if you started a campaign on campus to remove disposable coffee cups in favor of reusable ones? Here's a fun fact. Fewer than 2% of coffee lovers bring their own mugs to Starbucks. The report of the Starbucks Coffee Company and Alliance for Environmental Innovation Joint Task Force, published in 2000, found that if just 10 customers per hour chose a reusable mug over a paper mug, an average coffee shop could save 8,155 gallons of water per year. Estimating that there are approximately 150 Starbucks stores in Seattle alone, this would mean that Starbucks Seattle locations collectively would conserve 1,223,683 gallons of water each year. Additionally, according to the EPA, 25 billion styrofoam cups are thrown away each year just in the United States and have the potential to stay in the landfill for a good 500 years. Styrofoam is made from polystyrene, which is a petroleum-derived material, and petroleum is oil. So in addition to the harm done to the planet, styrene is also considered a carcinogen and has been shown to leach from polystyrene, especially when the inside liquid was hot. So basically that means you're drinking a little bit of poison when you use hot liquid in a styrofoam cup. So what can your chapter do to be part of that solution? Sometimes the hardest part is knowing where to start. So we've got some resources for a jumping off point for you. And we've put together a list for you to use if you want to start learning more and doing more. So on the handouts, in the, where is it? It's kind of like above the chat box here. You'll see PSP Lunch and Learn Resources PDF, which you can download. We also have a list of websites here that you can go to learn more. And if you're looking for some information or some videos to show at your chapter meeting, we also have some videos and also links to the TED Talk where you can use those for your chapter meetings. So with that, what we'd like to do is open it up for Q&A. And I'm happy to answer questions, or Sarah can answer questions. So take a few moments and put some questions into the chat box. And Casey, if you can help moderate, that would be great.
Yes, I do actually have some ideas that people were sending when you challenge them to come up with some ideas. I have two here as we're waiting for some questions to come in. Catherine said joining with our campus's green team. They do a lot of campaigning and work to make our university greener. That sounds like a great collaboration, Catherine. And then Emily said that here at University of Washington, Seattle, all of our on-campus coffee shops, including Starbucks, they use compostable lids, cups, and straws, and I think it's very great because the compostable act is very big here. So that's great that we're seeing that being done, especially at Starbucks, at a big, well-named brand. Okay, I do have a question for you guys. Joshua asked, how can we encourage open discussion without stepping on toes of politically minded individuals? We try to make it known that nothing is personal in our meetings, but sometimes have individuals who have a hard time staying in that mindset.
That's an excellent, excellent question. Sarah, do you want to take that one, or do you want me to take it?
I think my first recommendation would be just to start having a conversation with what people are passionate about. I know it can be tough, and sometimes it's a fine line to walk on, especially when we look at these global issues and personal experiences. So I think maybe a great place to start is to have, whether that be starting off smaller and using like a leadership and action module to start having a conversation that can then lead to a larger one. Or I know just, for me, I would really like to just have, these global sustainable goals in front of us and just starting a conversation, be like, okay, Casey, which one of these, really touches you? Which one are you the most passionate about and why? And having that open dialogue where, I think if we have the chance to just share, what drives us, what excites us, what's, for me, I've talked about, I think a couple times, but for me, homelessness is just something that it really touches me and really is something I'm passionate about. So I think just having those opportunities for members to share, what do they want to see change Where do they want to see, where do they see themselves having an impact? And then as a brotherhood say, okay, you know, this is what we can do as a collective body to support you in your passion for homelessness. Here's ways that we can take action right here on our campus. So I think maybe going to the people instead and saying, you know, what's in your heart, and what do you, you know, where do you want to have an impact, and how can we support you? I think could be a great conversation. So instead of talking about maybe necessarily what the problems are, talk about what are we going to do to fix it? What are we going to do to have our impact? And Vicki, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, the other thing I would say is start with some education on the global goals and on the facts around them. Because these were agreed to by all of the member nations of the UN, right? So that includes the United States. So, and yes, we are living in strange political times, I think it's fair to say, or at least times that we haven't seen before. And we are working in a divided geopolitical climate. But I think it's important to focus on that we're all human, we're all members of the human race, and start with some education. So that's what I would recommend as well.
Great, thank you. I do actually have a couple more here. Juliana, she asked, what are your recommendations for a chapter to get more involved in global issues? Are food drives, clothing drives, and volunteering enough?
So I would say food drives, volunteering, what was the other one she said? Clothing drives, those are all great. And I would encourage you to keep doing those. But I would also encourage you to look at what you're doing personally or what your chapter is doing collectively that is going to have an impact long term. And it is some of these smaller things like turning off the water when you're brushing your teeth, or making sure that you have a reusable coffee cup with you. So I would encourage you to look at some of those daily habits that when changed, and when changed as a collective, even as when changed as an individual, can really have a significant difference.
Great. Okay, let's move on to Colton's question. He asked, what are some good ways to help those less fortunate that is not in a food drive and is more face-to-face?
Not in a food drive and more face-to-face for those less fortunate. So I'm going to presume that you're not going to travel around the world, and that's not what you're talking about, that you're talking about locally. So a couple of things come to mind here. One is volunteering at your local soup kitchen or food pantry, because yes, you can donate food, but the reality is they always need people to sort the food, distribute the food, package up boxes, that sort of thing. So consider taking the next step, and whatever organization that you're donating the food to, ask them if they need some people resources. And it can be as simple as, you know, taking a Saturday afternoon, actually this month, and helping them pack up Thanksgiving boxes. So I would encourage you, if you're already doing that, to call that organization and ask what people power they might need. Same thing with clothing drives, right? So yes, they collect the clothing, but there are, so for example, in my local area, we're doing a winter coat drive. And the organization that we donate the coats to then runs these coat shops where people can come and, quote, shop for a coat, but of course they're paying $0. But they need people to help them, because of course there'll be lots of coats. All these coats have to be put in size categories and the type of coat that they are. So all that sorting has to happen to set up the shop. And then there are personal shoppers that help the clients come in and choose coat. And that takes people power. So I would encourage you to look at some of the organizations that you're currently donating to and ask them what help they need in terms of volunteering.
And I'll just kind of piggyback on Vicki too. I know, there's definitely these orgs that she mentioned, working, like if you're donating to the clothing bank, then contacting them about going to work, at the bank and sorting food and sorting clothing. I know something I've seen in my local community too. So there's, orgs and groups that then just hold separate events, because I think sometimes, it's nice to have, an event that takes their mind off of their hardships. So, sometimes, it's can be a little disheartening to go to a food bank and ask for food, or to go to a clothing bank and ask for food. So in my local community, I've noticed that orgs that, they volunteer, and then they also maybe host a separate bingo party, or they host another, just a fun Halloween party or holiday party, just to get those who may not be able to afford to go out to a restaurant, or can't, maybe go to special holiday events because they just don't have the funds. So maybe looking at hosting a separate event just to build the spirits and boost spirits. Say, hey, we would love to host, maybe a bingo event, and we can bring the food for the lunch, and we can call bingo, and then we can maybe see if there's local restaurants or businesses that can donate some prizes. Just to have more of a fun-filled, let's bring everyone together and have fun with their family, and take their mind off of it a little bit. That way they can get out of their house and just relax and have a fun afternoon, and then you get to meet and interact with them as well. So I think there's definitely a whole lot of ways that you can continue to build relationships that you may already have, as Vicki mentioned, with orgs that you're already supporting.
And actually, to go off of that, one of our national council members has joined us, Patrick, and he told us that the NYMAAC and other alumni, they actually volunteered at the American Cancer Society Hope Lodge, which is similar to the Ronald McDonald House, and they actually brought and prepared and served breakfast to guests receiving cancer treatments and their families. He said it was a great event and didn't require a lot of people to pull it off, and they got to talk with and spend time with them while eating breakfast. And I think that's great, kind of what Sarah was saying, taking their minds off of something that they might not necessarily be enjoying, but it's going to brighten up their day. So thank you, Patrick, for joining us and sharing that little tidbit. I'm going to have another question here for you guys. It's from Christopher. He says that Kutztown University is very recycling friendly, and there's an initiative to eliminate disposable cups, and it may go over very well. So how would he or a couple of their brothers go about starting it? Are there materials we could provide to present it, or something to look at and to build on?
Well, I think that is a wonderful initiative. Sounds like there's already some things afoot at your campus. So the first thing I would do is see if you can find out who's leading the charge, and see if you can partner with them and lend some support. So just based on the question, it seems like somebody is already kind of leading the charge. So that's the first thing I would do. See if you can figure out who that is or who that organization is. The second thing I would do is, as my kids say, Google knows everything. So I would actually start Googling and see if you can find other campuses having done this, or organizations having done this out there, and see what you can find. So that's the next thing that I would do. And then, Sarah, I don't know if you have any other suggestions.
I think it also goes back to what you mentioned earlier, Vicki, with learning. So, definitely find as many statistics, facts, testimonials that you can find. I know it was mentioned that a school in Seattle is using disposable, reusable cups. So maybe utilize the resources there. Certainly find other campuses, see if you can connect with them. But I think we definitely have this idea of a grassroots movement. So I think figuring out, the stats, the statistics, what will be doing to improve, not only the social aspects of the campus, but in general, a global impact of if we can get this to happen on every campus. So I think, if you find some folks that can help you to back you, whether that be faculty members, staff members, and then they can, direct you to the administration of how to best do that. So so a little shout out to my home chapter, Kutztown, yeah, Epsilon Alpha. So I think, you know, even contacting alumni too, like I'd be happy to help with that initiative as well. So I think you have a lot of people that could be passionate and that will support you in this. So I think it's just rallying the troops.
Thank you, everybody, for participating today. We had a great discussion. We had some great questions. And if you have any further questions that they come up while you're walking to class later today, or as you're talking to your chapter about what you learned today, please reach out to us. You can email us, you can email me, you can email Sarah, or you could reach out to us on Facebook or social media. We will all be happy to help and to answer more of your questions. So just to wrap up today, I want to thank Vicki and Sarah again for discussing how to use our leadership skills for global outreach today. I know I learned a lot, and I'm going to go home and I'm going to stock up on more reusable grocery bags and more water bottles and coffee cups. So I'm excited to get started in these little ways and grow what I will be doing. So I hope you all got inspired as well. And a huge reminder that tomorrow is National Philanthropy Day. It's November 15th, and we would love to see all of your service events that your chapter has planned for either that day or coming up this month, especially if you're doing one with Hobie or any other service organization on your campus that you've partnered with or in your community. Make sure that you're sharing pictures and your events with us on social media by using the hashtag PSP service. We're so excited to see them all. I think we're going to be creating some Hobie hugs here in the office tomorrow. So we're excited to participate. So be on the lookout for our pictures as well. And you're also going to be able to watch and share this webinar again and share it with members from your chapter who were not able to attend this afternoon. It'll be on our YouTube page at youtube.com/Phi Sigma Pi. There is a playlist that have all of the Lunch and Learn webinars, so you can watch this one and any of the past webinars that we've had. Share it with your members and share it with your chapter. We'd love to hear some more feedback. And I want to thank you again for participating, and congratulations, you now have earned 8 more Leadership in Action points. Remember that your goal is 75 points to earn your Leadership in Action certification. Remember that you can earn more points by participating in local, regional, and national modules, or in the monthly tweet meets and the Lunch and Learn webinars that will be coming up in 2018. The next one will be in the new year, like I said, so be on the lookout for more information. And our next tweet meet, that will be taking place on Friday, December 1st at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And our topic is PSP after graduation. We're excited to get our graduating seniors and alumni involved, and anyone who is just ready to talk about how you can stay involved with Phi Sigma Pi after you graduate. And you can register for that at phisigmapi.org/tweetmeet. And I am sending in the chat box a survey for today. If everyone can go ahead and take that for us, we greatly appreciate the feedback. And with that, that does it for today's Leadership in Action Lunch and Learn webinar. Thank you again, Vicki and Sarah, and lead on.